On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Hey everybody, we're the Menschwarmers. Thanks for joining us. I am Jamie. I'm here with my buddy and co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I come to you live on tape from beautiful Muskoka, Ontario. It is the annual post-aneurysm trip with my father. We play golf at a interesting place. We're in Muskoka this time. In a beautiful cottage we're at. I've recorded from this trip before, but it's nice to be here again. On this, I guess it's Canadian Open week, which, speaking of golf, fits with our theme for this episode. We've got a pretty exciting Jewish Canadian sports story for all of you people out there.
Yeah. Later in this episode, we're going to have an interview with Josh Goldenberg. Josh just qualified the other day for the Canadian Open, which is
through open qualifying.
As of recording, a few days away.
Through open qualifying, which is sort of a process they don't have. It's a process that is not long for this world. That, generally speaking, for those of you who don't know, in golf tournaments, Josh is not just any guy, but if somebody is one of the best, 500 golfers in the world, they can go to compete in various golf tournaments that are on the PGA Tour.
Right.
And we're bringing you an interview with Josh Goldenberg, who, after, spending a bunch of years trying to make the PGA Tour, has finally reached that gap through this open qualifying process at the Canadian Open this weekend in Caledon.
That's right. And Josh is sort of a not atypical story, I think, for golf, which is a lot of the people who are pros, not at the highest level, are, struggling to make it, struggling to get to the next level, get to the next threshold. He has played on what's called the PGA Tour Americas, which is sort of like I guess you would say like the AA level minor league in North America. He played on the tour that's below the European tour that's there, like AAA, which again, it's sort of like,
And he mentions that in the interview.
It's sort of like different levels of minor leagues. But I mean, it's sort of amazing because we're talking about people who are, instead of maybe the people who are the top 100 golfers in the world, they might be the 400 to 600th best golfers in the world. These people are still many standards of deviations better than anybody else. And, it's amazing to see them play or, watch the qualifiers and see how good these guys are. But as it's an open tournament, the Canadian Open is an open tournament. There's ways to qualify. And he talked to us about how he got to it. He is working a day job in finance at Goldman Sachs, and he was able to take some time off to go to the tournament.
A fairly Jewish company, I might say, both in name and reputation.
Right.
I feel like they get a lot of the heat that, call it 40% of the world believes about Jewish people is also what they, quote unquote, coincidentally believe about Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, he's gonna play 18 on Thursday, and hopefully by Monday he's back in the office to do our Forex coverage. But anyways, these are really I think there's a lot of grinders in professional golf who are just trying to make it, trying to get some starts in. And this is Josh's first. This will be his first start on the PGA Tour or in a PGA Tour event nearby Toronto in what's now called TPC Osprey Valley, which is sort of the new home of Canadian golf. So it's exciting to see what he can do.
It seems like it.
It's again, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for someone who has not been playing a ton in the last couple of years. But obviously, he was able to qualify. He had was able to put some good rounds together to get to this point, and anything can happen. We've seen amazing things happen with guys who are sort of on the fringes, and I think it's really, it was a great interview, and we're excited to see how he does this week at the Canadian Open.
We didn't talk about this during the interview, but there's a golfer named Ben Griffin who has won twice this
Right.
year, and he's been in contention a lot. And he had a day job 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was working as a mortgage broker.
Exactly. And now he is, PGA Tour winner and made $20 million in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So anything is possible for a guy like Josh. And I know I say this, being, the with my little Jewish nachas, but like, we'll get there. But he's got a UPenn education to fall back on.
I think that's a very Jewish part of the story, that he has golf got him in, or I don't know, got him into, but golf was part of his story. He went to an Ivy League university and got a degree and is now working in finance. And it's like, well, if the golf doesn't work out at the end of the day, things are going to be okay, which I honestly is not atypical for what we've heard from a lot of Jewish athletes. People we've talked to, like Ryan Lavarnway, who went to Harvard, where it was, that was the way was the way he was going to play baseball and go to university and fall back with a Harvard education is not, anyways, not atypical for some Jewish athletes. Obviously, people who value education and their children are going to. I feel like pursue that.
We're a little overrepresented. I feel like we're a little overrepresented in Ivy League athletes.
That's true. I mean, look at someone like Danny Wolf, who transferred from Princeton to Michigan, is now going to, in all likelihood, be a first-round NBA draft pick. And it's sort of like, well, were there other? I don't know exactly what his recruiting story was, but like, were there other offers? He's a 7 foot tall basketball player. I think there were probably. He eventually went to Michigan. I think there were probably other schools besides Princeton that would have been happy to go to give him a deal to come play there. But again, a Princeton and now Michigan education is nothing to sniff at. So
I remember Ryan Lavarnway told us, we said, we asked him, were your parents relieved that you chose to play baseball at Yale instead of anywhere else? And he said, yes, because it was Yale. No, because that meant no scholarship.
Right. Ivy League schools do not give scholarships.
That's sort
for sports,
of
it should be said. They do give scholarships for other things, but
the double-edged sword.
That does make things a little tricky. One other thing in golf news for this Canadian Open I wanted to briefly mention is that Max Homa is playing it. Max, of course, Jewish golfer from Los Angeles. This is the first time he's played the Canadian Open in many years. And in part, it is because he basically needs to win it to qualify for the U.S. Open. So just to give a little background on that.
Which is in Pittsburgh next
the U.S. Open is next week. Similar to the Canadian Open, there is open qualifying. There's different levels of qualifying. Max, for the first time in years, does not have an exemption to get into all of the majors. He will be in the Masters next year by virtue of finishing 12th, but he is not. He is currently ranked 90th in the world, and I think only top 60 have automatic qualification to the U.S. Open. He was in what is colloquially known as the longest day of golf on June 2nd. That is basically
it's golf's longest day.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Close enough.
You're right. Golf's longest day.
Oh, they care about branding. Oh, they care about branding.
You're right. He was in a qualifier not far from where the Memorials played in Dublin to be one of those last spots in. Again, just through a regional qualifier. Unfortunately, he was in a tie for 6th place. I think there were 6 spots or 7 spots, and he did not win the tiebreaker. And didn't even come in second, and actually blew a few putts and is not going to be an alternate. So I don't know exactly how it would shake out, but I believe if he won the Canadian Open, maybe if he came in second, he would be high enough that he would qualify. Otherwise, it doesn't seem likely, and it'll end a significant streak of major appearances for Max. And he'll have to work to get into the British as well this year. And again, it has been relatively a bounce back season for him. He was in contention at the PGA. He was in contention at the Masters. He played with Scotty Scheffler, I think, on Saturday at the PGA Championship, and obviously Scotty went on to win. So you can see that they were basically in the same position. Things sort of fell apart, and that's been the story for him, that he hasn't been able to get the sort of the second or third or fourth round together to make a real run.
And he had a decent showing at the Memorial, but he hasn't played the Canadian Open in a very long time. With any luck, he'll perform well and be available on TV so anyone can watch. There's a few other Jews playing in the Canadian Open. Obviously, we've got Josh, who we talked about. David Lipsky, who's been in several Canadian Opens playing there. Ben Silverman is playing in the Canadian Open. So there's at least 4 Jewish guys. I don't know if Max Greiserman is playing. I didn't see him on the list, but I didn't look
I don't believe he is, but Ben Silverman, of course, local Jewish golfer from Thornhill, is teeing off early Thursday morning with Mike Weir. So that'll be a nice story. And they like to put the Canadians together. I know there's an all Canadian 3-ball of Taylor, Pendrith, and Hughes. So it should be nice for Ben to be able to play with Mike. I'm sure. I assume they know each other. It's a relatively small golf community. So I think because of that, Ben will probably get some coverage. I think Mike Weir will be on, be shown on TV for those of us tuning in.
Yeah, which, and obviously as a Canadian, he'll be shown on TV, which is relatively exciting. Interestingly, what I think is a great story, and this wasn't mentioned in the interview, but Josh actually qualified. Josh qualified at the Canadian, stop at the Public Club, which he talks about in the interview. The other qualifier from the Public Club, we had a Jew in Josh Goldenberg and a man named Christian DeMarco was the other qualifier at the tournament. So we've got a Jew and a Christian right next to each other and together, which is, always lovely harmony to see.
That's great. Let's move on to another individual sport. Gabe, last time we spoke, we were getting excited about Robert Shwartzman's Indy 500 run. How did that go?
Poorly.
Oh,
it went poorly. To describe it well, Robert sort of led the race for, I would say, a hair of the time. The Indy 500, as we talked about earlier, it's an endurance sport. Basically, the idea is you need to survive and last all 500 miles going as fast as you possibly can. He did not succeed. He did not last very long. He ended up retiring from the race. He had a rough start and dropped to 10th for a long time, and then had some issues, technical issues, and wound up retiring from the race about a third of the way through. So I would call it a significant disappointment for anyone who's sitting on pole, but I would call the weekend overall a success for Robert. He got a pole position in a race, which is an incredibly impressive thing to do, especially as a rookie. He showed the fearlessness and the drive and the commitment to drive a car at 290 miles an hour, which is a feat that very few people, let alone Jewish people, have ever done anywhere.
Sure. Yeah, very cool.
And the fact that he was able to do that is something that will, he'll get investment in his career in the future. He just unfortunately wasn't able to, convert it into a win. But I would still call it a general W for him and the people.
Well, we'll have to check in with him some more as the IndyCar season progresses, and maybe catch up with him when he comes to Toronto for the Grand Prix, assuming that's coming. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. And last but not least, before we get to the interview, Gabe, let's turn to hockey news. It is, I think, not news to anyone who's following the Stanley Cup playoffs that Zach Hyman unfortunately sustained an injury in the game. Was it Game 5 or Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals?
It was Game 6.
It was Game 6, and will not
finals,
be
unfortunately
joining the Oilers in the Stanley Cup Finals. Unfortunately,
no, he's unfortunately done for a while, which kind of stinks. He is an incredibly important part of that team. One thing that makes Zach really special is that last year, the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals run, he was leading the NHL of all players in the playoffs in goals. And this year he was leading all players in hits.
Very amazing. I mean, I guess that's a good way to get injured is
bring it with his body.
Yeah, exactly. Very unfortunate. I think he is going to be, very present for the finals as much as he can be. I honestly, this isn't like someone who gets traded away halfway through. This is, if the Oilers pull this off, he gets a ring. He was a huge part of getting them there. He's a big leader on the team, and I think the Oilers really miss him.
He'll be at every game. He'll be in the locker room. He's an incredibly important guy in this tournament.
And meanwhile, we should say that Jake Wallman is still healthy and playing. He was a big contributor in the Western Conference Finals. He had 2 assists in the deciding game, and he has a goal in the playoffs so far this year. He's got a healthy plus minus of 12. I think that's pretty solid for having played in 16 games now.
That's pretty healthy. I would say it's very healthy.
Oh, for sure. I think he's going to be getting a fair amount of ice time. 20 minutes a game easily, and someone they're going to lean on to help protect the net with Florida's attackers. I mean, they have been sort of relentless and high scoring. So
they are a relentless team. I would say we are a biased fan group cheering for Edmonton in this tournament. Both being Jewish and Canadian, they're the team that is from Canada with Jewish players. Florida's going to have them in really tough. Although, I think we've talked about this before, but I think any team from South Florida is going to compete for the most Jewish fan base in any given time.
Sure.
Edmonton, however, we know we've got 2 Jewish players, including one who has appeared on this podcast. So as a friend of the pod, we will always cheer for whatever team Zach Hyman is playing for. And cheering for Edmonton and for Zach is, I would say, very important to us. And despite him missing, he had surgery, he's definitely not playing. Like, he's going to be at every game cheering, and we're going to be cheering right there with him. They got their work cut out for them.
Right.
But I think a really successful season, like, it's cup or bust. It's been that way for Edmonton for a long time. And let's hope that Zach sort of gave them let's hope that his spirit lasts for 8 days. They need, or 7 games. Let's hope that his spirit isn't for 0 games, but it lasts for 7 games in some sort of perversion of the Hanukkah story for the Edmonton Oilers this year.
And I our evergreen advice that cheering for a team based on the owner's attributes is ridiculous, but the Oilers are owned by Daryl Katz. He's Jewish as well. I mean, if you need more reason to cheer for them, someone hoisting the cup, Jake Wallman, Daryl Katz, Zach Hyman, maybe with his arm in a sling. There's a lot to cheer for there, and I think a lot to be excited about as the NHL season and playoffs winds down. On the basketball side, I think there's not much. I mean, we talked about the Knicks Jewish fan base last time. I think as the attention has moved to the middle of the country, not a lot of Jewish stories to talk about in the Oklahoma City Thunder and Indiana Pacers. The Pacers owners are Jewish, but other than that, I think that's about it.
Herb Simon is quite Jewish. I mean, Herb Simon is sort of very proud Jewish, person from Brooklyn, which we talked about the irony of that. The Thunder owner is I would say as waspy as it gets.
Clay Bennett. I think the only Jewish connection there is that I believe it was Howard Schultz, the billionaire Starbucks founder, who was responsible for selling the Seattle Supersonics to the group that brought them to Oklahoma City. So there is sort of I don't want to say he's responsible, because what he did was so terrible for the city of Seattle. But if you want to say someone was sort of a Jewish person was sort of responsible for making basketball in Oklahoma City. But
we're getting into a philosophical question. We're getting into a philosophical question did Howard Schultz create more for Seattle with Starbucks than he took away by selling these Supersonics?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like you would need layers and layers of debate and mid-rush to figure that one out, because I think lots of people in Seattle have lots of opinions about both those things.
For what it's worth, there is one of the Thunder's minority owners is a billionaire named George Kaiser. And George Kaiser is Jewish. He is proudly Jewish. So Jewish that his Wikipedia page explains which synagogue he goes to. He's a member of Congregation B'nai Emunah in Oklahoma City. So sort of the secondary owner of the Oklahoma Thunder is Jewish. So a Jewish owner will win one way or the other. However, whether it's a main owner or a secondary owner is the question.
Right. And who knows, maybe there will be some Jewish Oklahomans at the Thunder games, at the Oklahoma City Thunder games. I only know 2. Tim Blake Nelson, Buster Scruggs, is from Tulsa, I believe, as is Bill Goldberg. So maybe one of them will be at the Oklahoma City Thunder game.
But interestingly, George Kaiser, Tim Blake Nelson is his nephew.
Oh, okay, cool. Why don't we move on now to our interview with Josh Goldenberg?
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Well, we're very happy to be joined tonight by Josh Goldenberg. Josh just qualified for the Canadian Open, and he will be making his debut PGA Tour event. Is that correct, Josh?
That is correct.
So tell us how you got here. I mean, you grew up in Scarsdale. You played golf at UPenn. You graduated, I think, was it 2019, 2020, around then?
Yes, 2019.
And here we are about to start the 2025 Canadian Open. How do you get to this point?
I went to Scarsdale High School, was fortunate enough to be recruited by Penn, graduated in 2019 and had pretty good junior and senior seasons, and worked in finance over the summers while I was in school and never really thought seriously about turning professional. I had a conversation with my parents, a few conversations, and decided that if there was a time to go pursue this, it would be now. COVID kind of put a stoppage to everything in the world, especially the golf industry, for pretty much all of 2020. So that was kind of a write-off year, but played pretty intensely from 2021 to the end of 2024. Traveled to Thailand, played over in Europe for Q School, obviously South America and Canada. So was able to kind of go all over and make amazing memories and experiences and meet unbelievable people. But as time progressed at the middle to end of last year, I kind of thought more long term and if this was what I wanted to be doing for the rest of my life and my career. And I wasn't entirely sure, but I figured I owed it to myself to go through the Q School process and see the end of 2024 through. So I didn't make it through to finals for Corn Ferry, but I ended up making it to finals for Challenge Tour for DP, and kind of even with that status, decided that this wasn't the path for me, or at least at that time, and ended up moving into the city in March, taking a job in the finance world. And then, to where we are today, I was fortunate enough to be able to sign up for this qualifier. It was on a Sunday, which meant I didn't have to take work off on a Monday. And
That's amazing.
Was super, super supported by my team back in the city. Ended up flying up here Saturday morning, playing a practice round, and then played on Sunday, and here we are.
This is your first PGA Tour start. We are a Jewish sports podcast. Are you going to go and seek out Max Homa and be like, me, that's us?
Interesting question. I'm not going to do it from that lens, but
That's fine.
if the opportunity to introduce myself to Max Homa comes up somehow, I definitely will take advantage. I consider myself a pretty outgoing guy, and if I were in his shoes, I would warmly welcome that. And I actually, when I qualified, I was like, who could I DM to play a practice round with? And I DM'd. I was thinking of DMing Max. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I did, but I don't. He's probably not even on his Instagram at all. Since he kind of stopped doing the whole freeze fix swings and whatnot. So. If I can introduce myself to him, I gladly will.
Well, now that he's retired as mayor of golf Twitter, maybe you could take up that position.
Yeah,
if there's a vacancy.
Maybe.
It's very cool that you're able to qualify for a PGA Tour event. I mean, obviously it's called they're called the U.S. Open, Canadian Open. That actually has some meaning in terms of these tours. So where was the qualifier that you played? Where was that to make it into the event?
Yeah, the qualifier was 20 minutes away at the Pulpit Club, which is a really nice private course. And it was very, very interesting. A ton of elevation change. It was really windy when I played. But the whole day was run as a 10. So credits to them and Golf Canada and the whole team there.
Two-part question. One, have you played at TPC Toronto before in any Canadian Tour events? And two, as a pro, you've played some of the most amazing golf courses all over the world. You've seen lots of places. Do you notice when a course is good, or is it just sort of all work?
I have not played TPC Toronto before. No. So yesterday was my first time playing it. And then B, I will say, given I've been playing golf since I was 3, and so I've certainly been spoiled to a degree in the sense of the courses I've been able to play, and just through competition and more leisurely. And I think that it's pretty easy to tell, when a course is, a 10 versus a 5 and a 7. And I've definitely have played throughout that entire range, both competitively and not. And
Interesting.
so I will say when the course is in, tip top shape, it makes it even more enjoyable, more fun. Aesthetically, it's pleasing. It's challenging on a golf level. And so, even though it is, or at least was, quote unquote, work, it still just made the overall experience that much better because it was more interesting and more fun and more enjoyable to be on the grounds of a prettier golf course and a more challenging golf course than one that's kind of out of shape or not properly irrigated, or the bunkers are kind of poor, things of that sort that you don't really necessarily hear about or see on TV as a, I guess, viewer, or as a patron. And so, as a player, of course, you want to, be on a golf course that is uh, well manicured and maintenance and all of those things. But I think at the end of the day, it's kind of just about coming back to, what the job at hand is. And so all those things are great to a certain extent, but at the same time, everyone's, playing and teeing it up on the same golf course. So all of that goes away come Thursday.
Interesting. How does it make you feel to be playing in front of other people as opposed to be playing just in a foursome or on your own on
I
a
I mean,
regular course?
I absolutely love it. I find playing in front of more people, the more people the better for me. I There was a Latin event where I was in the final group on Sunday. I think this was in 2023, and there were like 100 people following or something, but the most that had ever followed me in a tournament before. And I just had an incredibly amazing day. It was an absolute thrill. I loved kind of performing, competing in front of a crowd, and I can only imagine what this will be like Thursday and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, hopefully. And the hole that they have here called the rink. It's a short par 3, but
Sure.
it's basically Waste Management's little brother. And yeah, I mean, I've never competed in this type of atmosphere before. I'm incredibly excited for it, but I always enjoy playing in front of people. But I also enjoy playing with my dad and my little brother and my best friends too. So that's what's so great about this game. There's so many different forms of different ways to enjoy it.
I think I know the feeling. I mean, not to brag, but I once played Hockley Valley where you're staying right now. Gabe
There you
was with
go.
me. He can attest to this. We had to play through some people. I hit driver off the deck from 220 yards to 4 feet for a birdie. So not,
There you go.
you and me, we're basically the same. We're the same
Basically
here.
the same. Basically the same.
Really shot of my life. I can't believe I did it in front of a crowd. Usually that
I
would,
love that. Four
it
feet from
scares the hell out of
220.
me.
I'll take that.
Yeah, anyone will take that. So,
Yep.
our next question, we can get into your identity a little bit. You you are obviously, I follow you on social media. We've connected before. You are a proud Jewish man. And I would say you don't hide any of that part of your identity. Do you think, as an athlete, are you, should this be a great week? You're gonna have a lot of Jewish people come and find you. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think I've always been proud of my Judaism and the way I was raised, and the values that I feel like my parents instilled in me. And I think, coming from Scarsdale, which is a predominantly Jewish town,
Sure.
it's not really diverse, and so you don't really grow up seeing what else is out there. And I think going to Penn was the first time where even though Penn is also on a relative basis more Jewish than other schools, still not like a Westchester or Scarsdale town. And so that was kind of the first time where I was able to see different religions and cultures and things like that. But I think what makes Judaism so special is because that identity component ties, you know, what is such a small percentage of people in the world together so closely. And I mean, we are a true minority, but when you meet someone in a different country or town or city, and you kind of have that in an exchange with them, and it's clear that you're Jewish, I think there's an inherent connection that is created, which I think is incredibly special. So that's something I deeply value, something that for example, I was playing in a tournament in Tulum, Mexico, and I went to one of the cenotes during the practice round days. I think that's the right pronunciation of that word, but like one of those natural spring water swimming pools. And
Mhm.
I remember meeting a Jewish family from Israel, and this was right after October 7th, and they had pretty much fled the country for a period of time. There were 3 or 4 kids, all spanning different ages, with their young parents. And even in Mexico, I was able to have a deep and profound conversation with them for almost a half hour on their trip. And that's something that, not to compare to other religions at all, but to me was so special, and I feel like is one of the things that I find so meaningful about the culture. And we were kind of able to connect instantaneously just because of our religion. And so I think that's something that I'm definitely mindful of. So in the context of this week, whatever happens, I just know that our kind of population of people, incredibly resilient, incredibly strong, and no matter where you are, where you're from, it's kind of that knot that ties so many different people together, from all over.
That's great. That's really a great sentiment, Josh, and I think that's a good place to end it. I think we'll just say, good luck, Mazel Tov, Yasher Koach for this week. Have a great tournament.
Awesome.
I know all the Jewish Canadian golf fans who are there watching on TV are going to be rooting for you. So
Great.
Good luck this week.
Thanks,
Really
James.
cheering for you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Nice meeting you guys.
Well, thanks again to Josh for joining us. It was a great interview, and hope he gets some rest before the big tournament. I hope we're watching him all 4 days this weekend, Gabe. We're certainly going to keep an eye on him and the other Jewish golfers playing in the Canadian Open.
Josh said it well, where he said he's going to do his best Thursday and Friday, pause, and then hopefully Saturday and Sunday. We're going to be rooting for him big time to make the cut. You can follow him on PGAtour.com, follow him on Instagram. We didn't ask him if he had anything to promote, but I assume what he has to promote is either his career or whatever file he's working on at the time.
He's got some great bond options for us.
Exactly. It's an incredible accomplishment, and we are very proud and excited to have him on the show. So thank you again to Josh for taking part.
And as always, we were brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News. You can find our podcast and articles and everything else at the Canadian Jewish News website, thecjn.ca. We're produced by Michael Freeman, and you can follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. Thanks for listening.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.